I like to share this story because I realized how much I'd accepted where I was, and that's part of actually overcoming addiction. Because there's nothing worse than being a broke pilot. It's like being a broke celeb, man. Like you're
In terms of investment, how much would it cost for someone to become a pilot? How much would they need to put in?
from start to finish, you're looking at about 7.5 to 8 million. There's no one I know who has a conventional story where I just went to school and I got a job and everything was perfect.
Yeah.
There's always a story. What people tend to see is the finished product, man. Getting a job, an aviation job, is not easy. My first flying job, I was getting $20 a day. I went to South Sudan.
Okay.
I was being paid a per diem. They were paying for my accommodation in South Sudan. A lot of the times they don't. You just go there and like you're like a backpacker who's flying.
Who happens to be flying every so often.
The middle class, the hawks, because this job has to work for at least the next 10 years.
They take one to become a captain,
It depends also on where you're working.
Okay.
So different companies have different criteria, including nepotism. So
Hey guys, welcome back to Financially Incorrect. Or welcome to Financially Incorrect. My name is Barak. These days, I've always said, I remember to say my name when we started this. I did not. And this podcast is proudly sponsored by FXPesa. As usual, if you'd like to have trading classes and attend them physically, you can at Thika, any of the FXPesa offices in Thika, Eldoret, Kampala, Nakuru, and coming very soon to Dar. So look out for that. We'll let you know once that launches. If you'd like to open a demo account or an actual trading account, again, the links are in the description box. Please do go ahead there. You can trade in Forex, you can trade in gold, you can trade in different commodities. So it's, I guess, your one true solution for trading, right? So again, huge thanks for FXPesa to be able to have us and keep sponsoring us to be able to get this done. Today, I have a very apt conversation. And we're recording this on Wednesday, the 24th of July. And yesterday, we were occupying JKIA. Yeah. So I have a very apt conversation for you guys today. I have the one and only Eric Mutiso in the studio with us for our Financially Correct conversation. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. I'm a fan of the show.
Yeah.
I've watched quite a few of your episodes.
Yeah.
So to sit here is actually surreal. You guys have a nice setup.
Yeah.
Nice to clear up that it's on air.
Yes, not on air. I'm telling you.
Nice winter afternoon in Kenya. Actually, I love this weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Really pleasure to be here, man.
I actually cannot stand heat and humidity.
Same here.
Same here. I can't do it.
I love this. You just put a jacket on here.
Yeah, because we know when it's cold you can always put clothes on, but when it's hot there's a limit to how many clothes you can take off. And once you're
dealing with the
AC, yeah. So in fact, when we go to the coast or anywhere that's hot and humid with my wife, the AC fight is severe because I want it at like 22, between 18 to 22. That's my ideal, and she's like, nah. And can't.
I've worked in places. I worked in South Sudan. I remember the fight in the hotel itself. Like 1 minute's 18, next minute's 23. Gets too hot, gets too cool. And then trying to find that sweet spot is hard.
Yeah.
And you can easily get sick.
Yeah.
Actually, my wife got pneumonia down at, Malindi last year.
Oh, really?
Because of the AC, sleeping with the AC on.
Yeah.
Mild pneumonia.
I cannot sleep in the coast, anywhere in the coast, without the AC on.
Yeah.
I can't. I cannot imagine how I think my body would just it would just refuse. Anyway, for anybody who doesn't know, Eric's story is incredible. He's done a CTA and very long but worth it. I watched all of it and I just looked into your story, and we were just discussing this before, and I was just saying I don't know anyone who has genuinely had a crazier life within proximity of relatability to some degree, because you lived in Dam, I also lived in Dam at some point, and just hearing what you went through, going to rehab, was it 8 times eventually? I think it was going to jail for 2 weeks, like being in jail, not cell.
Yes, it's good. always good to differentiate the two.
Yeah, being in jail for 2 weeks. And then coming out the other side, getting your career back on track. That's insane. So in fact, my first question is going to be repercussions of you doing the CTA for your career? Have you felt like,
I can't get specific about who I work for. I told you off air. But it's been a mixed bag though, but more positive. I've had people come to me overtly and tell me, wow, amazing story, inspiring story. And a lot of people have also sought advice for people, loved ones. A lot of the times people also package it as loved ones, but you can tell they're also asking for themselves. There's also people who've like hated the guts, like you're misrepresenting what we stand for. The old idea of what a pilot, quote unquote, is supposed to look like, represent. Amidst, all the same suffering that happens within the industry. So it's like a catch-22. Like don't talk about it yet. It's so prevalent, right? So I think more good than bad for sure. More good than bad. It's been positive. I was very apprehensive for obvious reasons. Stigma. Once you're there, man. It's not my platform, so I can't control what the person does with it. But for the most part, it's been more good than bad, I must say.
Maybe even before we really get into it, I think, and the last couple of episodes we've recorded, we've done this because it's just such a prevalent matter right now. Just the general, I don't even call it political, the general climate in Kenya right now. Did you guys feel the effect? Because you were flying yesterday. So did you feel the effect of the potential Occupy JKIA protest?
So all throughout the movement, our company has not really been, we've not felt the shocks. Which was actually something we've joked about, like, hey, guys still need to go. A guy still needs to go to Diani,
Despite the protest.
But yesterday, for the first time, first of all, of course, the company made arrangements. So because I live in Upper Hill, and we were anticipating that anywhere from Uhuru Highway all the way to JK might get blocked up. So they made arrangements for us to be at a hotel at the airport for ease of us going to the airport to operate. The job must continue, so kind of thing. But I did 4 sectors. 4 sectors is I flew to Lamu, I came back. Now on the afternoon flights to Kisumu and back, we noticed like, hey, the loads are pretty low. And that's the first time we're like, okay, we've actually seen this thing actually affect, because I think people actually cancelled travel or maybe postponed it for another time. So I think, that was the first time this whole movement actually affected our operation in that regard.
Okay. And what about personally? What's your take? Have you been on the streets? Have you protested? Have you sent money? What's your take generally around the accountability that's coming up around?
Well, I'm married to a Gen Z. So when this whole thing started, Gen Z, she's 27, just for clarity. But like, oh my God, R. Kelly. No. The first of the Gen Zs. And from the onset...
Like, a couple months earlier, it would be a millennial.
Yes. So the first thing I noticed immediately was the difference of thought process just within our household. You know, I'm a millennial, and there's heavy developed fear over the years from what we had for our parents. So initially there was that apprehension, like taking to the street, that's not for us, Let guys go to the street. But my wife, she's an advocate. She was really keen to go and play her part, bail people out, go to the street. We just got off the phone today and she's like, I wanted to go. Like, guys are saying after the announcement of the new cabinet. She's like, no, like, and that's of course the sentiment going around. So me, I was more of a, did I support in kind? I'll wink and say I didn't, but for sure, yes, supported in kind by way of a contribution. And on my own platform, I've hosted a few people who are perceived, one person who's a perceived leader or was a perceived leader, and we had open forum, open conversation. Definitely Kenya needs change, man. I think it's undeniable. This movement has taught us a lot. There's definitely a class difference, and people hate to use the term class because you're separating people, But again, it's our reality. And the middle class have this false sense of we're almost like the elites, so to speak. But I think this movement has shown that, in fact, we're nowhere near. And you see them banding together to actually fight this Gen Z movement,
Yeah.
which has become a wider movement because it's not just Gen Z.
I mean, Uganda were at it yesterday as well.
And Gen Z has morphed into more than just the Gen Z. It's like anyone and everyone who wants good governance is part of the movement.
Yeah.
Some behind the scenes, some on the front lines, and everything in between.
Yeah. You know, can I just say I'm really appreciating this AC right now because we've had 2 other shoots today.
It was hot.
And this AC was not kicking in. So I am very glad.
Yeah.
But it's just off the cuff comment. Anyway, just to give some context to what we're going to talk about today. And just to give our audience, listeners, whoever it is, some context, is the basis of the conversation that I'd like to have with you is on two fronts, because we explore multiple industries, explore how people make money in those spaces, explore what you do with your personal finances as well. And so I want to explore that as a pilot, right? The possibilities and processes as a pilot. But then there's other really big pillar that you have, that you've come out as a recovery ambassador, recovering from alcoholism. Yeah. And there's a whole other world around how that works. So I just want us to explore or talk about those 2 things in relation to your life and how those have manifested. And essentially got you to where you are today at the tender age of 34. Yeah. So, I mean, I know, based off of, I guess, the stuff that I've watched and what you said, that you relatively came off from a relatively well-off background. Maybe you can just give some context to that, because I know you talked about taking annual trips as a family, overseas, and what that was like. So maybe we start there, in terms of just the money or the money environment that you grew up in.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'd say contextually off from the beginning, but my parents, or my specifically my father, because he was the head of the household, has of course always aspired for better, and I think has also been a beneficiary of good governance, because in our household we saw the transition of when Kibaki came into power, and how the climate changed for us as a family financially. In the Moi era, it was always tough times. I never once had my folks say things are good, And even the trips we took, I think I mentioned, it was a very sacrificial thing that my parents endeavored to, and it was also on a budget. It was always like the best deals, like airline tickets, and even on the other side, wherever we went, it was not like we were just bowling or It was more about the experience, exposure on a budget, right? Yeah. And now, once the new government came in, my father started to do a bit better financially. Yeah. So we started seeing.
What industry was he in?
He's an advocate as well.
Okay.
He's a lawyer. I said as well because my wife is.
Yeah.
So you could see his firm grow.
Yeah.
He moved offices from where he was to a bigger office. We moved house from Nairobi Dam. We moved initially to Dennis Sprit. We kind of stayed in the same schools.
Yeah.
And then eventually we moved to Gigiri.
Yeah.
And that's where I grew up for a good portion of my formative years.
Yeah.
So for sure, beneficiary of good governance. And my dad also is a workaholic. So, which is something I kind of have. In fact, my wife is always telling me, there's no excuse for laziness, and add the layer of me, I'm picking up the pieces, so there's no room.
There's no room at all.
at all.
Yeah.
So we didn't have access to cash like that. I don't know if that's a Kenyan thing, but my dad he tried the allowance thing for like a month, and that's like, you can't just have free money. So he always believed in working for money, however big, however small.
Yeah.
So a custom in our house, I grew up with 2 of my brothers in the same house, was washing cars, man. I think most boys who grow up with a household with cars have been subjected to that. So it didn't matter if it was a weekend or if you want money to do something or to buy something, you'd have to like earn it. And I can't remember what the going rate for washing a car was, but
that's how you get.
That's how you get by. And chores around the house. We used to call it speak and span. Mm-hmm. Speak and span was when my dad would say, who's going to do speak and span? Speak and span literally is just get the house in order, sweep it up, tidy up, arrange the sofas, arrange the dining table and all of that. And that would always attract a small token of appreciation.
Yeah.
So that was my first. It was always incentivized.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you then, I mean, because if I remember correctly, you start drinking at Form 1.
Yes.
Right. And the moment that's when you start, I think the word you use is finessing
Yes.
your folks every so often to try and get more and more cash. And so at this point in time, even at of course Form 1, you're 13, 14.
Yeah.
You're just taking cash, or all the money that you have, you're buying booze.
So from the onset of me finding out about drinks and now like realizing, wow, there's this thing that's so amazing.
Yeah.
That makes me feel so good.
Yeah.
Not knowing that I was addicted already, but now when I look back, so all my finances were tied to turn up.
Yeah.
My dad was kind enough to give us money to go on dates, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say maybe 30%. Okay, let me be fair. 50% I'd actually go on the date.
Yeah.
But now also the dates became drinking dates. Yeah. So it went from like a typical cinema.
How much would he give you to go on a date?
If I think back, maybe 1,500.
Okay, and this is
Or 6 or 5. That was quite something.
Yeah.
And the big shift was because I went on my first date in primary just before KSP.
You went on your first date in primary.
Date. Yeah. So
like date your.
let me paint you a picture. So I was part of a soccer club in Consolata, and I asked this girl out. And by the time I was asking her out, I didn't even know what that meant. So now when I went home and I thought about it, I'm like, okay, we've seen on TV guys go to, especially I think it was My Wife and Kids.
Yeah.
We've seen guys go for movies. So I pitched it to my dad, and he found it so funny but so interesting. Like, wow, this kid has guts. So he literally picked. I went for soccer, went home, showered, changed, got in the car, we picked the girl up. Of course, my dad talked to her parents.
Yeah.
Then dropped us at Village Market.
Yeah.
We saw the movie. Most awkward date ever. Of course, so shy. I think I said maybe.
Was your dad in the theater?
No.
Oh,
he left.
Yeah.
Maybe I said 40 words. Maybe total. She was shy as well, but it was so nothing like how it plays in your head. You know.
I would love to have been on a fly on the wall.
It was so
between the conversation between your dad and her parents.
Now looking back, that must have been. I think they were laughing because she was mixed race, so she had a bit more conservative, more liberal parents. Yeah, so they must have found it quite funny, maybe cute, but funny. And when I think back, my mom actually had some apprehension, being typical mom.
Yeah, like
what do you mean date? So we watched The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I remember it's so funny that the AC is working so well. I remember. When you watch a movie that has snow and
yes,
you actually feel cold.
Yeah.
And I remember that like for hours on end trying to think about how I'm going to put my hand
around her shoulder. Yeah.
I probably did it 3/4 into the movie.
Yeah.
It was awkward. And the movie ended and I remember being told by my friends, so when the credits start going up, that's the time. That's the time
to make a move.
To steal a kiss. So I remember stealing a kiss.
Yeah.
But I say all this to say in that story, it's about finances because I took home change. Because that was pre-alcohol. My alcohol started in high school. This is primary.
Yeah.
So finished the date after movie. I think I got a Skittles, whatever I had left. When my dad came to pick me, I actually gave it back.
Like thanks.
Keep the change, thanks. And for me, that was the most sensible thing. There was no other way about it. That's how I'd been cultured.
Yeah.
So things took a shift now when I went to high school.
That's really interesting. And part of the reason why I was saying that is because I have I father 2 daughters. The oldest one is turning 11 in a couple of days on Monday, and she has a boyfriend, and her mom and I, my wife and I like we were there, no big deal. But then the difference for them is they have communication on the phone or whatever the case is.
They can text.
So he wanted to take her for a movie. For her, was it last year? I don't know. Anyway, so he wanted to take her for a movie. And I remember when my wife was telling me, I was like, that's really... So, they went, and my wife went, and so did her small sister, and my wife, watched the movie with them. But anyway, that's why I found the conversation potentially very intriguing between your dad and Anyway, okay. That makes sense, because I guess now you've taken cash back. So this is before...
This is pre-alcohol.
Now, what are your dates like after... alcohol?
So when I think back, even from the approach, was boozed. Like I was tipsy. I remember one of the girlfriends I ended up dating for relatively long, maybe like a year.
Yeah.
A year back then was like 10 years. So
Yeah.
I met her at the pool hall of Village Market and I was tipsy. So I had the courage, So I went, hollered at her, got to talking, got a number, kept texting. That time I think it was still SMS.
Yeah.
SMS calls up on a pale. Eventually took her on a date. Went on a few proper dates, like maybe a movie, maybe lunch, before quickly it became Sherlock's Den, right? And so much so at some point she pointed it out. And this time I'm maybe late teens. She's like, hey, but why are we always drinking? It was fun in the beginning, like, her first experiences with booze as well.
Yeah.
But for me, I'd always take it a step further. So like once the money has run out for like black ices and beers,
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go to Nakumatt, I'll buy my kafuraha kin.
Yeah.
Because I need that kick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, of course, eventually that relationship didn't work out.
Yeah.
Fun enough, for booze reasons at that age.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, money was patapote. I had to get really creative.
Yeah.
Like I said, I sold booze in school. I was a reseller.
Yeah. A distributor.
For that markup that I'd put would now sustain my, amongst many other things, IDs, fake IDs. I had a friend who had Photoshop, so we'd make fake IDs.
Yeah. In fact, those are like two things I wanted to bring up to you today, to sort of discuss. But before that, I want to ask, if I remember my high school days correctly and the teenage days correctly, the guys who were on vices, the guys who pushed the envelope, were the cooler guys. Like it seemed like chicks drew closer to them, right? So I'm wondering, coming from the perception of my life, which is I have very few, or my vices are not in I would say natural way that people have vices, like drinking, smoking. Those are not things that my body just wanted to do, right? So I'm wondering, because I would always feel like the guys who would drink, like the chicks would, would want to hang out with them, and they always have
bad boys.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering how many drinks or how many date drinking sessions does it take for the chicks to get fed up and be like, nah, this one is now like, this is not cool anymore. This one is now sideways.
Again, for context, so I was in day school, she was in boarding.
Yeah.
So holidays, we'd try meet as often as possible.
Yeah.
So holidays were a month?
Yeah.
So within that month, I'm on holiday, she's on holiday. Maybe sometimes thrice a week, we try just meet, even when we're broke, let's just meet at Village Market and hang out and just, I'd always find a way now to bring booze into the mix. Remember, Furaha was 55 bob. You can't cost 55 bob up and a pale. So within a span of a year, considering there were terms where she was in school, she was in boarding school. Towards the end, I think after we sat our final exams, that's when she realized, nah, man, I don't. This is not the train I'm trying to board. So
yeah. Okay, and even in terms of being able to purchase, drinks underage. And I'm asking this from the context of I was suspended in high school. I was in boarding school. Like I said, I'm not a person who was on vices, right? But I wanted to fit in, and I never felt like I fit in. So, and then I had braces, right? So every 3 weeks, I'd go for dental appointments, and I'd come back in the evenings, right? Because then I'd just take advantage of the whole day and be out. So one day I come back and I get booze. I come back with booze because I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to fit in.
The plug.
Yeah, so I come in with booze, and so everyone in the boarding house is excited. And it goes quite well. So I'm like, I'm gonna do this again. So I do this again now with my best friend at the time. His name was Said. Hopefully he's anyway, he's fine wherever he is. I know where he is. He's fine. So I do this with him. We go to our school was in Karen. We go to like a local kiosk like thing, and we go in and we buy booze. We buy like it was a man of something, I don't know. Anyway, buy booze, come back to school, and then how we planned it was, I was going to walk in with the booze in my trouser, you know, and I'd walk with it like whatever pace. And then because we also got like snacks and stuff. Of course, the watchmen are going to search. So he was going to come in with a bag and the watchmen were going to search him.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was going to like walk through. So it went according to plan for like 2 whole minutes. Until the watchman was like, wait, how come this guy has gone through so fast? No. Wait, come back. I want to search you. So at this point, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to catch me. So I remove the bottle and I throw it into a bush. So then I ran towards him. Then he's like, no, I've seen you throw something. I'm like, no. I haven't thrown anything. Anyway, comes to the bush. He looks to the bush. Literally on his last, because he couldn't find it, on his last search, like when he was almost giving up, he finds it. Anyway, so I then get suspended. But that's my suspension story. But when I like I said, I did it to try and fit in. But when I think back to it now, and when I look at my pictures, because I was 16, I was 15, 16 at the time. Like I was such a kid.
Yeah.
And my face, I didn't hit my growth part until like 17, 18. So I was like I looked like a kid. How could this guy sell me alcohol?
It's actually crazy. I was tall, but I had a baby, like I had such a baby face. I remember once we managed to go to one of these establishments in town.
Yeah.
F1, and F1 had ladies of the night. Just not to actually pursue, just to see. Because in Form 1, a bit of freedom.
Yeah.
I remember literally being told by one of those, hawa watu wa Cerelac watoke hapa. Cerelac is like
soft,
food for babies.
Yeah.
And when I think back, we probably look like babies. Like, what are you guys even doing here in the first place?
Yeah.
So when I think back as well, I've thought about that many times. Like, how are they selling me alcohol? In as much as I was tall,
Yeah.
it was so clear that I'm not an adult. And I'm not someone who's crossed age. That was Nakumat. They're no longer here. I used to buy booze almost like. It reached a point like I didn't even think twice about buying
that
booze.
you would be stopped.
Be caught, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. And I think the commercial drive just make money. Anyway, the next thing I wanted to ask you about was, because you talked about how you'd be absolutely hammered in your house, having dinner with your folks and no one saying anything. Are you able to paint us that picture? Like, how much does it take you to get hammered at that point? And how are you then keeping composed in I guess, on the dinner table?
So I went from Black Ices, before Black Ices got expensive, to Napoleon. And then I found a sweet spot with a specific drink that I don't think is there anymore. It was called Iceberg.
Yeah.
Iceberg was like a plastic version of Black Ice, like a Kenyanized version, but way more potent. Yeah. So my sweet spot was about 7 and I was proper hammered. But now the thing with Iceberg, it didn't stink like a loose Bordeaux, You're as high as like probably 2 quarters, but it doesn't stink like that. And even I till today, because my parents are they were not people who would not say like, you guys, you're boozed. So I think I acted well enough and I slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I remember vividly there are times having, of course, keeping my words very few.
Yeah.
But I got away with like being tipsy.
Yeah.
Maybe one day they'll tell me like, okay, we knew all along. But I remember, and my dad is not the type of guy to not be like, hey, are you drunk? And later, at some point, of course, he started noticing, and every single time he would confront me. Every single time.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And your pursuit to become a pilot, right? Where does that come from? Because I know you said you had that vision from very early on, but where does that come from?
So the trips played a part. I really loved the airport thing. There's a vibe about the airport. You're going somewhere.
Yeah.
The lights, standing in line to queue to board the plane, the duty free, on the ramp, walking to the plane, on the bus, going to the plane, boarding the plane, taking that peek on the left to see the cockpit, seeing those shiny stuff, the uniform, the cabin crew, the plane, sitting down, the takeoff roll, we're airborne. The whole thing was always like, what?
The whole production was...
And then I happened to have 2 uncles who are pilots.
Yeah.
At the time, only one, because one did it later in life. In fact, that's why I was telling you, one of your guys, that it's still very much... In fact, the younger uncle, the last one, he started when he was older than him by 1 year. And right now he's a captain. He's been flying for very many years. So it's not too late. That's a point of... But I had an uncle who would always visit us because my dad was like the firstborn. So he'd always pity our house to like say what's up. And his swagger for me was just, that was it, man.
Yeah.
He always had the cool clothes.
Yeah.
The shiny car with tint, sunroof when sunroofs were rare.
Yeah.
He once had a Trueno with the lights that, wow. He was just a cool guy. So all of that for me was like, what? I have to become a pilot. Of course, the KQ theme song.
Yeah.
British Airways theme song.
Yeah.
That thing for travel and go, I just loved the idea. So I knew that was what I wanted to do. And I also knew, I realized very young, I'm not an office guy. That I would have really struggled with that, like the office thing. In as much as I was good at academics, I was not seeing how I could do the corporate thing. In fact, when I came today here, I felt very out of place. Like I was
because of all the...
like, wow. Like, yeah.
Okay. Typically, how much would it cost? How much in terms of investment? How much would it cost for someone to become a pilot? How much would they need to put in to have the
from start to finish?
PPL and CPL? Yeah, if you're just doing it typically, yeah.
It depends. So although it's not so, it doesn't change by much. It depends on where you choose to train. So if you train in Kenya, for example, from start to finish, you're looking at about maybe 7.5 to 8 million total. That's from private pilot license.
Yeah.
Commercial pilot license, and something called a multi-IR, multi-engine instrument rating, that allows you to fly an aircraft with more than one engine, and without reference to outside. Yeah, so that once you have a multi, now you can fly the big boys, the Boeings, the Airbus, the Dash 8s, and etc.
And how long? Okay, so it's 7.5 to 8 million. And how long would it take you to achieve these three licenses?
If you're a stellar student, super focused, remember there's many factors, including things like maandamano, right? Typically, I think the record I've had is maybe a year and some change, but that was not here.
Yeah,
that was abroad. That was SA. I've had that in SA, and I've had that in the States. Here, maybe a year and a half. That's a very focused guy. Remember, with the flying, you have to do the theory as well. And the theory is what gets guys, because you have to pass for a PPL. On top of the 40 hours you require, you must also get, there's 8 subjects you must pass.
Yeah.
And then you do a flight test. But you cannot do the flight test without the subjects. The theory done. Yeah, so the theory part is what keeps guys longer.
Yeah.
Because you start the flying, you get excited, you like the flying.
Yeah.
Your theory starts to take a backseat. So people who are able to balance well, someone who can finish in a year and a half has done really well for themselves. I'd say that's a very good benchmark.
But that then also means that your folks or your support system, whatever the case, has about 8 million of cash willing to invest into you in about a year and a half.
Yes. So another reason why people take long is there's, of course, the payment element, having to stagger your payments for flight school.
Yeah.
So you'll find, but the dream of flying is a strong one. So you'll find a guy took 10 years. You'll find a guy took 15 years. A guy started maybe as a cabin crew, as a loader.
Yeah.
For cabin crew is pretty high up the chain. The guys who start from literally 1 hour at a time, one hour at a time. Of course, as you go, you develop relationships. People start paying for you an hour here, an hour there. So there's many factors attached. I'd say if you do it abroad, SA, some of the really good schools, if you play your part well, you're looking at 2 years. If you do everything that they tell you to do, how to do it, and you put in the effort accordingly, you look at about 2 years. But now the cost goes up by maybe an extra 2 million or 3 million.
Okay, so you're now like 10, 11 range.
Because of accommodation.
Yeah. Okay. Before, because I want to talk about the working and business opportunities, but before that, I want to ask you now. So that's a typical pilot, right? Yeah. How much did it cost, if we're trying to do a guesstimate, how much did it cost for you to become a pilot? Because you were here, you were in SA, in 2 different schools in SA, and then came back.
So I don't know the figures. My parents would know better, but definitely more. Because also when you take too long, you see, if I start doing my PPL, let's say I do 10 hours and I stop, and I come back after 6 months, I have to do a refresher. And the refresher is actual flying with an instructor, which costs money. So you end up paying more. That's why it's like for PPL, it's advisable at least raise the money for PPL, which is like 1.5, then proceed. Lest you end up paying double.
Because you can keep paying that. If you take breaks, you can keep paying that 1.5.
Yes. For now, when you get your PPL, you already know how to fly. That cannot, unless you have like a very head injury or something. you can't forget. It's like riding a bike. You know the basics.
Yeah.
So for CPL is one you can do an hour at a time until you finish. But that PPL, so for me, definitely I paid maybe 1.5 times the cost because of my struggles.
Yeah. Because of being in and out of school
and shout out to my parents for bearing with me.
Yeah.
That's a very big sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, even I don't know if I'd have tolerated myself. That's a grace only maybe a parent can have.
Yeah.
I know it was also a lot of sacrifice. Not like their coffers are just unlimited.
Yeah.
There are many times my dad would be paying for like a renewal, and he'd tell me like, "Do you know what I could do with this?" And so big shout out to him and my mom as well. Like, I'm literally here because of their grace as well. Yeah.
Okay, and let's talk a bit about the business opportunities as a pilot, or the potential of being able to make money, because I guess the opportunities to be a pilot, right?
Yeah.
I remember, because I have two brothers, my twin brother and my elder brother, who both have PPLs. But I remember my elder brother finishing, and he wanted to be a pilot, and then he was like, no, he didn't want to do it anymore. But I remember there being a lot of discussions around people who had finished their PPLs but weren't able to get jobs. I know. Well,
You mean CPL, because you can only fly with
CPL. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I know my brother's friend who came from South Africa, came and was supposed to be trying to convert the license, and he actually ended up like getting a corporate job. I don't think he ever, or if he flew commercially, it was for private institutions, not like the way you'd think KQ or whatever the case is. Yeah. So, what's the job market like after you have after you finish? Yeah.
Aviation is a global thing, and time immemorial, man, ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
There's a guy I talked to on Instagram. He's called the 787 bus driver. He's a United captain, half Chinese, half American. He's been in the game. He has 2 years to retirement, so 2 more years to 65. He has to hang up his license. And he always talks about the ebbs and flows. Like, aviation will come, all of a sudden it's a surge. Right now we're on a very positive wave in the post-COVID era, because a lot of people who are saving realize like at any moment in time, everything can come to a stop. Let's experience life. So people are traveling more than ever. So right now, of course, a lot of companies are hiring. You'll find the Saudis are trying to launch Riyadh, and they're trying to poach Emirates. So if Emirates go, there's space in other carriers. So it took us on all the way down to Kenya. So because eventually KQ's guys go, there's a lot of job
spaces.
But before that, there was a season, I'd say from like 2015 to like 2020. T for tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. Jobs were scarce. So you'd find people either going into operations. Of course, in operations, you're in the periphery of the people who make the decisions for hiring. So if you work in operations, which is many people would say a tier lower than your job description as a pilot, but you're at least in the power view. So a lot of guys did that to survive and to eventually be the first to be considered. But also aviation requires, there's no one I know who has a conventional story where I just went to school and I got a job and everything was perfect. There's always a story. What people tend to see is the finished product, man. Getting a job, an aviation job, is not easy. Probably get 1,000 is an expression, but I'd say even before I got this job, maybe in the past 2 years before I got it, maybe 60 no's, maybe 5 almost, and then finally I got the job. So that grit is required. As a friend of mine, same thing with cabin crew. There's a friend of mine. He's been trying to get a cabin crew job, and I keep telling him it's not a thing for you send one email and then these guys have taken no. You have to tarmac. I did the tarmacking thing, and tarmacking in the literal way.
Like walking up and down.
If you've been to Wilson, from the entry all the way to the end. Literally dropping physical CVs, talking to people, trying to meet the chief pilots of places. And eventually, that's actually how I got my first ever job before the one I have now. That was a while back. I was just, when someone quit, I was the first guy that came to mind because I'd been going there so often.
Okay. And what's the pay scale like? If we can talk about the pay scale of, I guess, pilots, what? Because everyone, I guess, I think it's like a known thing. Pilots make good money.
Assume we earn a lot.
Yes. Well, let me say we assume we make a lot.
Well, I'll be fair. So comparatively, yes, but it also varies.
Yeah.
So the entry level at, say, in general aviation is like not airline per se, not conventional airline.
Right.
The entry level salary nowadays, because of the glut of people finishing flying school, is not that much, contrary to popular belief. So you'll find in a JA company, maybe some companies start as low as even 80,000 shillings.
Really?
Yes, as low as for the because you're entering as a co-pilot, co-pilot trainee.
Yeah.
And I'm not for that practice. That is unique to Kenya. That is not something that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That kind of thing is unique here.
Yeah.
But like you go to the States, comparatively it's higher. But now what they suffer there is things like having to commute. So you find a guy is based, let's say, in the equivalent of Kisumu, but his job is in Nairobi. So every time he has to come work, he has to commute. You know how big the infrastructure is so much better.
Yeah.
So you find guys have like common apartments, stuff like that. But again, grit and for you to reach where you want to go in aviation, and specifically flying, you have to have some resilience.
Okay. So what are the different tiers, right? Because you've talked about this, I guess, co-pilot trainee. So like if you were to try and map out the possible tiers that a pilot would work through, what would they be? And if we can do that against what guesstimate would be for their however much they'd be making at that level. Yeah.
Okay, so when you finish flying school, let's say you get an airline job.
Yeah.
You become a second officer. Yeah, second officer is a pilot trainee.
Yeah.
You're being trained and assimilated into the airline.
Yeah.
That means you're being trained to fly the aircraft that they operate. So let's say they have a Boeing 737. In flying school, you only flew the Cessna and the twin engine, which is a 4-seater. So it's quite advanced. It's quite a learning curve. So you're paid as a trainee because you might not make it. You've been employed, but you might not see the training through. So a lot of guys crash out. Figuratively crash out. Because the training is tough, man. Hey, the curve is so steep. It's like you've been riding a bike and then someone gives you.
When you say tough, what does that mean? Are you able to break that down for me?
Academically,
it's like, for example, it's like telling me, doing a push-up is hard. So it's like, okay, is it the going down? Is it the coming up?
Let me break it down. So think of a bicycle, right? So in flying school, you're taught how to ride a bicycle. And by the time you're done with flying school, you're pretty comfortable. You can ride a bicycle. It's nothing to you. And then someone comes and gives you a Harley Davidson. And now you not only need to know how to ride it, you need to know exactly how it works. So think about that concept now in the form of aircraft. So the curve is steep. And remember, a bicycle, you're probably just riding in the store. The airspace is pretty limited. Now you're given a Harley Davidson, you can go to coast. So you need to learn new operational things that were not there before. So the training phase, a training second officer or pilot trainee typically earns about 80 Gs also, right? Because the company doesn't want to pay you your full salary until they confirm you.
That you can be a...
Which is called a checkout. So a checkout can take anything from the time you sign, anything from 2 months to 6 months, depending on the company and how fast they're able to train you guys. Then from there, you become a first officer. First officer typically is not a co-pilot. What a co-pilot is, the guy you see, what I do right now, I'm a first officer. So the difference between a first officer and a captain is experience. Experience, both of you do the exact same job. So if you fly 4 sectors, I'll fly 2, he flies 2. He or she flies 2. But they are the ultimate authority. They have more experience. And they earn more, of course, because they also have culpability attached. Apart from the swag of having the 4 bars and you're the guy in charge and all of that, culpability is also attached to that. So you're the one in command. So a first officer, co-pilot, earns maybe, I don't want to get, let me just...
Give me ranges.
Anything from 250 to 650. Depending on what kind of flying you're doing. If it's airline, there's so many versions, right? So that's around a rough range.
From there?
Then from there, once you become a captain, anything from 650 to $1 million plus.
How long would it take you to become a captain? So would it take one to become a captain? Yeah.
It depends also on where you're working.
Okay.
So different companies have different criteria.
Yeah.
Including nepotism. So there's many factors. If a lot of pilots will watch that and actually find that quite funny.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Let me just use a sane environment.
Yeah.
Like where I work.
All things standard. Yeah.
So what they look for is command qualities. Because command quality is not... By the time you're being considered for command, you already know you can fly. That's not the thing.
Yeah.
We're looking at leadership skills, decision-making ability, people skills. How are you with people, right?
Yeah.
So you'll find sometimes maybe, and of course, there's an hourly requirement depending on the airline.
Yes.
You must have, let's say, 4,000 hours for us to now consider you.
Yeah.
But there's always a caveat. The head of operations or the chief pilot can pick someone who's extraordinary before the 4,000 at their discretion, because they're savants. I mean, there's people who they don't need to do 4,000 hours for them to be recommended, and there's people who need to do way more than 4,000. Yeah, so it's command qualities, leadership skills, people skills. Are you respectable? Are you are you a guy of integrity?
Yeah.
Do you adhere to the rules? Do you understand the work environment? Because flying is not just pushing the throttles up and gear up and now autopilot.
Yeah.
There's so much operational stuff you have to think about.
Yeah.
And even me in my role as a first officer, I always get positively befuddled by something the captain will point out. I was like, wow, I didn't even think about. Like, you can see why I'm the A4 and he or she is the captain. It's an experience thing.
Yeah.
We call it the bigger picture.
Yeah.
They're able to see the flight from start to finish and all redundancies if need be.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a muscle you develop the more you fly. That's something I'd say even 6 months ago, and now I'm so much better than I was.
Than you were 6 months ago.
Yeah. So I can imagine now what 4 years, 5 years.
Right.
The guys who fly for 35 years. So,
yeah.
So
now, I guess for you now, in terms of look at your earning potential as a pilot, does it end at that 1.2 mark, or does it, do you sort of keep going? Do you look for bigger?
So again, I'll use a conventional environment. So typically, like I think corporates have it as well.
Yeah.
Every year you get a boost.
Yeah.
The longer you stay in a company, you keep getting a boost.
Yeah.
So much so that the American Airways pilots right now are getting, I think, $500,000. Of course, they're in their per year. Of course.
Yeah.
They're in their sunset years of their career, but they've served over 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So there's that.
But primarily you're doing the same job.
Same thing.
That's like a very interesting thing, because I feel like in a... I don't know how to, and I don't know whether it's even fair to compare. But I'm trying to think about, like, if you get to the best version of a CEO, right? And there's disruption coming and all these things that are coming, and I feel like, and it may be an unfair comparison to make, or an unfair statement to make, but I feel like the job can change and the job does change. I feel like from what you've described, the aircraft can change and does change.
That's a wonderful, actually, question.
Yeah.
In fact, you've made me think.
Yeah.
Because, you see, let's use a best case scenario, the ideal pilot, yeah?
Yeah.
The ideal pilot who becomes a captain, let's say at 40, or no, 40 is far, let's say 35.
Yeah.
And decides to fly till he's 65.
Yeah.
The ideal pilot, that means by way of nice optimal leadership skills, optimal flying skills, optimal people skills, personal development. By the time that's the 35-year-old captain version of him, and the 65-year-old version of him should not be the same. This guy should carry some reverence to him. We see it all the time. The captains, senior captains, are like, there's an energy about this guy, super seasoned. Maybe you also see that in the corporate world, like, hey, this guy has been in the game. You might both be captains, but I'll say they're not the same. Yeah. Now, as technology advances, of course, there's always things changing, even in the cockpit.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe 15 years ago, there was like drastic changes. We moved from steam gauge, not 15, maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
Steam gauge to glass cockpit. Glass is now screens, LED screens.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis the old thing where it was gauges and dials.
Yeah.
some captains, some of the older guard were not able to transition to screens. It was as I used to dials.
Yeah.
This is too much of a change.
Yeah.
Levels of automation have also improved.
Yeah.
By automation, I mean autopilot and the abilities of the autopilot. So if I'm coming from a culture where, for the most part, I was flying the aircraft with a bit of autopilot assistance here and there, and then now here you're telling me this plane can do that and this and this and that and that for you. There are people also who could not really transition from that philosophy to this philosophy.
Yeah.
So that age thing it'll catch even me by the time I'm in my 50s.
Yeah.
The advancement of whatever aircrafts will be then, I may or may not be able to continue because of what I'm flying right now, the different levels. But yes, I've said a lot of words, but ideally, two captains in the same company who have the same exact job description of different experience by way of age, ideally should not be the same person.
Yeah. Okay. And in a I don't even know what to call it, like a airline company, would pilots be the most paid individuals in the company?
In the company?
Yeah.
Yes, save from, of course, the CEO.
Yeah.
You have the head of operations who tends to be a pilot, or usually has to be a pilot, but his role is no longer just flying. He's also the corporate and the other side of the company. So, of course, they attract a higher salary.
Yeah.
And, of course, there's also different tiers within the flying fraternity. You have your first officer, you have your captain, you have training captains who train the new recruits.
Yeah.
So to be a trainer, it's a specific rating you have on your license.
Okay.
Not anyone can just train. So, of course, they earn more for the training that they do. Then you have like a chief pilot who's in charge of all the pilots. Of course, he earns more. You'd have like the head of engineering who definitely earns more. You have some of the top people in corporate who definitely earn more. But typically, now when you look at just all the stuff, it tends to be, we tend to have the higher salary comparatively.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get back to your, I guess we've sort of delved into the business opportunity and the piloting space, right? And I'm trying to figure out whether we go to your, to the journey. Yeah, let's do that. So if you're then moving, I mean, for a typical person, if you're jumping from 80 to between, even if you work with the least amount, 250, that's like triple the money that you're making.
It gets
right?
guys.
As a pilot.
It gets guys. It's a common theme.
Yeah. So that must be like a shock to the system financially, right?
It almost destroys many pilots. That huge jump from zero to hero.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you can buy a Subaru.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen, guys, in their early career, a lot of mistakes are made.
Yeah.
I always thank God that I got into where I could have easily been where I am right now if I'd played my cards cookie cutter by 25. But because of my journey, I've gotten here relatively late. But with the maturity that will sustain me. Yeah. Because I would have finished myself, like many pilots have.
Yeah.
So a lot of money doesn't mean that you're financially sound or you have the smarts to deal with money. It just means you have a lot of it.
Yeah.
So you'll do more of what you already do.
Yeah.
So if you're a guy of the party, you'll party more.
Yeah.
If you're a guy who's over generous, you'll give more.
Yeah.
If you're stingy, you'll just stockpile.
Yeah.
So the mentality doesn't just shift automatically because now you have more money. And that gets a lot of people into sticky situations, like especially that thing for buying fast cars and then you have an accident. Like that's such a common theme in aviation. But now over time, they're trying to sensitize, especially the younger cadets, that there's a lot you can do with your money to plan for your future. The kind of money that you're earning at this age puts you in a better position to plan for your future years.
Okay. So I mean, for you then, because by the time you're now becoming a first officer, right? You've been to the rehab the 8 times, you've come out, you've been to jail, you're out. You have then now you've worked as a teacher, and I believe as a teacher you said you were getting 35,000 a month. You are living at the place where you're working, the CEO's abandoned
apartment.
apartment, and I'll ask a few questions from there. But I want to find out. So when you start making this 80 Gs as a trainee pilot, what are you doing with your money at that point?
Well, to be very honest, so for me it's different because my first flying job, I was getting $20 a day. I went to South Sudan.
Okay.
I was being paid a per diem, so I didn't have a salary. They call it hour building. So you're building your hours towards being more marketable.
Right.
Again, a practice that's not really fair. It's quite unjust because you're qualified, you're licensed.
Yeah.
Pay me a salary.
Yeah.
But because also there's a lot of desperation.
Yeah.
A lot of companies will say, okay, we have a captain, but the kind of contracts we have need a first officer. So get a guy who needs to build. I had in that context, I had a dream scenario because they were paying for my accommodation in South Sudan. A lot of the times they don't. You just go there and like you're like a backpacker who's flying.
Who happens to be flying every so often.
It's the jungle. And every so often they'll conjure you like a $20 or $100. I had the softer entry where as much as it was $20 a day, I had that. And I had we had night stops, $100 a day.
Yeah.
So I was able to, I was not doing much. I was just living with it. So I got an apartment. I started buying a few things here and there.
Yeah.
There's nothing fantastic I did. I just lived.
Yeah.
Right? This time around, when after teaching and getting that 35 for that long, again, I had to now upgrade my life because I had my fiancé.
Yeah.
We had to move from the abandoned house.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I had to level up a bit, you know. So, of course, I just kind of adjusted our lifestyle a bit. For the better.
Yeah.
And also because of that, like I've not had so much saving, for example, this year. Remember, I signed last year, September. I've only been working where I've worked since September.
Yeah.
So this year has been a year of almost kujiambia pole.
Yeah.
For all that time. but I'm more responsible pole. No drinks, just you guys, I can have a decent phone. You know, after having a crazy phone for a while, could buy some clothes. You can have a car now.
Yeah.
You can live in a decent house.
Yeah.
And now the conversation even between myself and my wife is evolving now into now we kind of have the things we need to live comfortably.
Yeah.
And not extravagant, just comfortably.
Yeah.
And of course, because I also have a platform, I also bought some stuff like gear. Now let's start planning more soundly. Very dangerous, and that's why I always say the middle class is the hoax, because if things were to be pulled under, I'm in quite a volatile kind of position right now. Yeah. So this job has to work for at least the next 10 years.
Because it's been, if you're saying since last year, September, you're going to make a year in
September,
in another 2 months or so.
Yeah.
So this has been, this has been your first 10 months of, I guess, what you would maybe consider regular
or flying
consistent
absolutely
income.
Absolutely.
That you're able to plan with, that you're able to actually do. Like get yourself nice stuff, get yourself a nice
afford a loose movie here and there.
Yeah.
At some point, because of my choices, a cinema was like, I used to walk to, I like to share this story because I realized how much I'd accepted where I was, and that's part of actually overcoming addiction, because I had reconciled, like addiction has brought me to this point where I have to walk to town to go to Sanford to buy a fryo and a soda.
Yeah.
And if my wife wants, she can have a sausage, you know. That's what the funds are allowing for.
Yeah.
And no ketchup, eh?
Yeah.
Ketchup.
That's fine. Was it 5 bob or 10 bob?
I think it's 10 bob.
Yeah.
No ketchup, eh?
Yeah.
That's my reality, and it was almost blissful. So now, of course, we went through the typical, oh my God, like we got a nice TV. Everything was a laptop for us. We used to watch things on the laptop.
Or the phone. I know we talk about the
phone. Phone for the longest.
Yeah.
At some point we had
Netflix and chill, you were like this.
Yeah. On the bed. In fact, we were laughing the other day we were laughing how We used to sleep early because we didn't have a living room to really chill in. So,
So you end up sleeping
early to bed, and early to rise.
Oh,
Not by
gosh.
choice.
Yeah. I have to ask a question, right? Because, okay, so you have been you are an addict for, well, I guess from what you were saying, addict for life, but you are an alcoholic from 14 to
29, 30.
Yeah, 29, 30, right? So you've been through what? How many years are those? Those are 14, 15 years of
I'd say half my life.
half your life, right? Of being an alcoholic. And so, one may argue philosophically that, yeah, you going through a hard time thereafter in the up and up is, part of the penance almost,
Yes.
that, like, yeah, what did you expect? Yeah, you're going to work as a pilot teacher being paid 35K. Yeah, you're going to have to walk to work. Yeah, your folks may have a house in Gigiri, but you're going to have to do your work to get there.
Yeah.
Now, from what I understood, you moved, you and your wife, your current wife now, moved in very early on,
very
right,
early.
together. And you're saying this is a Gen Z, I mean, albeit at the age, but Gen Z. How did you convince a Gen Z advocate in training, right, to walk this journey with you? Like, honestly, from a financial perspective, not even from the goodwill of, I want this guy to be good. Yeah, financially.
So it's a crazy story because I first started talking to my wife.
Yeah.
She was a first year student. This is 2016, 17.
Yeah.
I was not Katenga. Where I used to stay, there was a WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
And I used to do a podcast only in audio that time. I think it was on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
So I used to post it in the group. And all of a sudden, this person starts engaging me like, hey, I really watch you. I had saved as fan. There was like 2 people. So she was fan too.
Yeah.
I didn't even know her name. Right?
Yeah.
Incidentally, and I don't know whether this is God or serendipity, I had seen her profile some time back, and 3 things: there's a podcast, there's Facebook, and seeing her around. Mind you, that time I was dating someone. I used to see her around, I'm like, wow, this girl is pretty.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm dating someone.
Yeah.
Then eventually I see her profile, and from far I used to like her stuff. And then eventually I got down. I used to talk to her up and apale. Then now many years later, we just started talking, and we just never stopped. And this was before I relapsed the last time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I relapsed, she was there for me. And man, a true love story, man. Like, we're so far past our honeymoon phase. You're a married guy, But for me, the honeymoon phase now also seems so silly. Like the love has evolved to something so much deeper.
Yeah.
I can't explain why she stayed with me, but I've always been a vision bearer. Like, I definitely did not look like I was resting on my laurels, irrespective of how bad things were.
Yeah.
Even where I worked, that's why I got promoted so fast. I had reconciled, so I didn't have airs of, maze life imenipiga.
Yeah.
Like, I was really like, I talk about my car, like, I'm gonna fly air. Like I was still talking all these big things.
Yeah.
So women also buy into vision.
Yeah.
And provided there is some slight forward mobility,
Yeah.
it's sustainable,
Yeah.
But of course, the underlying thing is love. That's what I'd say. So amidst some of the toughest time, I think I've shared a story where there was a time we had a rat crawled through our bed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really do much about it, even by way of buying maybe even repellent.
Yeah.
I remember just sitting up on the bed for the first time, feeling so defeated. Like when you can't change the circumstance for the person you love. But we laughed it off. She was like, I think she has a gift of joy, man. She's just, I don't know. I lucked out, I must say.
Yeah.
I lucked out. And irrespective of our new circumstance, like now I have a bit of fumes. Between us, nothing has changed. We can just now do a bit more, help a few more people as well. What has changed is how much time we have to spend because of my job.
Yeah.
But there's the
What about her family?
So
what were her family? Because I Yeah, I'm trying to imagine.
So
like,
a typical case of her family don't live in Nairobi.
Yeah.
So when she was in KSL and staying with me,
Yeah.
there was a room at KSL
Yeah.
that was paid for by the parents. So it's not like we were like, hey, she's staying with me. You guys just hope you know she's no. That was a secret for up until now. Of course, I think they were doing later. They were doing the African thing for hear no evil, see no evil.
Yeah.
They could deduce like, why is it every time we wanna come visit you, man? You know, there's a story, you know, like why is it every time? So I think they did their math. But by the time the math was mathing for them, I was also engaging her, like officially. And I mean, when I asked for her hand in marriage officially, she came from a different culture, so Muslim that is. So of course I went. It was by the time us guys got married, it was quite a process, you know.
Yeah.
Shout out to her family for being quite accommodative. Shout out to my family. Yeah, but it was not easy in terms of convincing them. Yeah, because there's nothing worse than being a broke pilot. It's like being a broke celeb, man. Like you're when you pilot Minnesota, you know, it was also painful. I remember even in the throes of addiction when I'd be drunk, let's say, you know what a Java base is?
A Java base.
Java base.
Oh, Java base. Yes.
Base Java.
Java. Yes.
So I'm there with my English, drunk, still with dreams of flying. And of course, at some point, you become the laughing stock because this is well-spoken brokers guy who can buy that we're having to buy Java for 50 bob. So
yeah.
It was a hard sell. I remember there were questions even by like her dad, like, okay, you say he's a pilot, but
this pilot were not,
like why like why is it, I mean, where it doesn't look, but a lot of support from my family and her family eventually.
I mean, at what point do you tell her parents the full story?
They don't know the full story of how tough things were at the time.
Yeah.
But by the time I engaged her officially, you know, in that culture, for the father, in fact, if it was as simple as me being Muslim, the moment I engage her, she has to be given, like officially. They don't like to create a lot of. So that also helped, and also represented myself well. When I would meet the first time I met the dad, because I met the dad alone first, pitched my story, pitched my case, like why I want to marry his daughter. Then I met him with my father. Then we had the subsequent meetings now, the wider family, wider, up until the wedding. So I also played my part, man. Like, I didn't go there and kowtow and just be like, oh.
Yeah.
But respect to them for
being...
for accommodating.
Amenable, if nothing else. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about I want to call it business ecosystem in the rehab space in the country, because I know on the interview that you had, you talked about there's rehabs that are run as businesses, there's rehabs or halfway houses that are run essentially to, you know, you're halfway out, halfway in, back to rehab. And I guess I just wanted to ask a little bit around, I guess, your experience with the, you know, the experience that you've had in different rehab spaces. What is my question? Are they making money?
Well, again, there's tiers. So there's some very well-oiled machines. Like, I don't know if I wouldn't mention them by name, but like the guys who deal with like corporate clients. Corporate could be maybe even this place, the big four, airlines, where it's insurance based. So there's a standard, of course, they'll set. So you'll get decent food, decent accommodation, but the care is what's in question. Because they're all about charging. So, hey, man, how you doing, man? You slept well? You've eaten? Okay. Any nightmares? Okay. Any ideations of suicide? Okay. 10 G's. So, gone. And unbeknownst to you, because the bill comes later. It's either the company paying, or if you're a private
person,
what they've mastered also is they make the client feel like this is this part of whatever that set fee that you've paid. They don't tell you about all these subcharges, so much so that even sleepers are charged. You'll find sleepers. You took sleepers thinking, wow, they have sleepers. I remember being charged because at the time I used to smoke cigarettes. So they had Nicorette. I mean, I was thinking it's a free Like, wow.
Yeah.
And when the final bill came, like, it was like, Nico, so there's that kind.
Yeah.
And of commercially, they're so viable. Those guys, the directors are wealthy.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at it from purely a business standpoint, I mean, it's fantastic business. But if you look at it from a bit of an altruistic human perspective, I don't know if I'd have it in me to just divorce myself from the humans involved, you know? So there's that kind. Then there's the kind where it's like every mid-tier business, where it's pata potea.
Yeah.
Pata. There are good seasons, there are bad seasons. So much so like Christmas festive is known as a high season for rehabs.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys relapse.
So, I mean, is it Christmas or after Christmas?
Just before, guys relapse just before festive.
Yeah.
When either schools or hospitals, or work has closed.
Yeah.
Guys relapse. So there's always guys who are brought. So for the mid-tier, it's literal Kenya. Think of a typical Kenyan
Business. Yeah.
It's like they're making things, they're balancing. Everything's a balancing act. Yeah.
I wonder what the psyche behind setting up a rehab establishment as a business, I wonder what it must be. Because how do you determine a markup vis-a-vis the fact that you're making money and profiting off of
You know how they
someone's
reconcile it?
misfortune? Yeah.
They reconcile, especially like the high tier that I just described.
Yeah.
They're hospitals. That's how they reconcile. The same way Nairobi Hospital makes a profit.
Yeah.
You can't just walk into Nairobi Hospital and they give you care and they'll charge you an arm and a leg for that care. So that's how they reconcile it. Like, we're offering a service and the service is paid for.
Yeah.
If you can't afford the service, it's not for you. If you don't like the service, you can go elsewhere. It's also safe for corporates to feel like, but they're in that place. No, it's the same way Nairobi Hospital has a bit of a name.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe another unknown hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they reconcile.
Gosh. Anyway, I think, it's really, I don't know. I guess they say alcoholism is a disease. I guess a disease like any other primarily. So I guess, I don't know, maybe the way that it's framed or the way that it's talked about in society is what's like making me feel like, there must be something that's amoral around the way that these guys make money. But I guess it is what it is. I sort of wind up. What is it like if you're and I sort of was asking you this before we got on. If you were to try and break down for me, based off of your observation, the difference between an alcoholic or you taking a drink and an average person taking a drink.
An alcoholic and a non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
So for an alcoholic, they say one is too many, 1,000 is never enough. So don't take that first one, because however many you take, it'll never be enough. And be enough is not just that you'll blakey, recover, wake up and go and drink again.
Yeah.
So that continuity against serious consequences, be it finances, job, relationships, health, that compulsivity to continue that you cannot control is what differentiates the alcoholic and even a drunkard. A drunkard will drink and have a jolly well. There are many drunkards, man, who get super plastered, but Monday they're at work,
Yeah.
I always say that for them, maybe what will suffer is their relationships. Maybe their wife got pissed at them, quarreled them a bit. Maybe they dented the car. But it doesn't take over their lives where now Monday they're just thinking about kutoa lock. That kutoa lock thing didn't come from nowhere. It's an alcoholic phrase.
Yeah.
Kutoa lock, literally in the morning, wines and spirits is open. I mean, last one ended into a lock, because you're not comfortable, you're fidgety, you have sweats, you have shakes. So that compulsivity is what differentiates. Yeah. Now the root cause is, the verdict is out there. I think there's a psychosocial, there's environment, there's genetics, there's a melting pot of all these things that can actually lead up to someone being an addict or an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about hunger. I always tell people, think about how if you got really hungry, at some point you'll find out to get food.
Yeah.
Booze and addiction is stronger than that, because at some point you'll forgo food for booze. Yeah, like booze, food becomes. Someone can actually offer you food, and you'll be like, you'll be thinking, "Can you give me cash
Instead.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
can I like yeah. So the same way you feel hungry at some point, you need to service that hunger.
Yeah.
Or thirst. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
That's just.
And now it's physiological mixed with psychological.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wish they would develop. You know how I think I saw this like a couple of years ago, where some research company had developed some machine that they were putting to men's cause that would allow them to almost feel what it potentially feels
Labor.
like to be in labor. I wish they could create a machine that would allow an average person to be able to feel the thirst.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, man.
You wouldn't?
I wouldn't.
Because you see, I'm really trying to understand, like, what is this feeling?
Because imagine
Yeah.
trying to tell someone you're eating because you are hungry,
Yeah.
and they're telling you you're eating because you're bad, yeah, and you can't help it. So that's the social dilemma that comes attached.
Yeah.
Because the other person can't understand it and they can't imagine it. They just don't give you a pass, and that's the society. So I would never wish it on my worst enemy. You know, it's so bad. They developed a drug that it was meant to be a deterrent. So you take a pill.
Yeah.
If you drink, you get sick. Like you'll throw up. Guys still drink, man. Like knowingly,
Yeah.
you know this thing is gonna make you like sick.
Yeah.
But they just can't help it. They still end up drinking. And so that, of course, failed dramatically.
Yeah.
It was meant to be like, so in the morning I've taken this pill, let me not drink because I get sick. But guys still, somewhere in their mind, like, ugh.
You just take it.
Yeah. So I would never wish it on anyone. Like, even just to have the experience, it's so bad. There's so many examples in even just mainstream society of people who we've seen, some of them in the highest levels of society.
Yeah.
And you can see that irrespective of all that wealth, you're still a prisoner of that thing.
Yeah.
And that thing has ended up with probably affecting your life, my life, his life, because of that. Think about the misjudgments that happened when said person was, for example, high.
Yeah.
That are so far-reaching, generationally. Our kids, I mean, so it's not something I'd ever wish on an enemy. I always say, if you're a relative of an addict, friend of an addict, empathize. Don't baby, empathize. And the moment they want the real help, give.
Yeah.
If you have it in you to give it to them, give it to them. If you don't have it in you also, it's also okay. Like, don't ever fault yourself for, I just can't. It's also okay, man.
How much would you say, if we were to try and break it down financially? Because I know you said if you had, done things, as you were supposed to, you would have been where you are now at 25. Now this is 9 years later, 9 years later. Are we able to try and quantify how much money?
So in rehab, they make you do that.
Yeah.
It's called financial damages. And they make you draw almost like a spreadsheet of how much alcohol has caused damage. Bro, it's in the millions, man. Like high tens.
Yeah.
Like up there.
And
man.
this is money you've spent, or this is
spent on booze.
Yeah.
Spent on care, maybe rehab.
Yeah.
Spent on school not being finished on time.
Yeah.
Spent on accidents. Maybe you've written off a car. That's a clean already 7 million, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Spent on being bailed out.
Yeah.
And it's usually very high. Because sometimes when people get shocked, like, our family even has money like this. Like, you see people going through. But that's what, when they say steal, kills, and destroys, it steals even resources from the rest of the family.
Yeah.
So much so that they can end up presenting you like, hey, man, I also want to do this thing, and you keep going to rehab,
Yeah. Because rehab, I mean, at this top establishment, a 3-month stint would cost, what, $1 million?
Yeah, thereabout.
Yeah. Right. At a lower...
You can get it as
market.
As low as maybe what? A month? You said a month or a stint?
A stint, like if you're doing 3 months, yeah.
Maybe 240 ATGs a month. That's like you negotiated,
Yeah. So that becomes a lot of money. So I mean, if you're factoring yours in, are you factoring the amount of money you would have? I mean, albeit in a fantasy world, you would have made as a pilot between 25 and now?
You see, for me, I can't think like that. And the moment I try to take that journey, because the lessons I have from my struggle, I would never take it back.
Yeah?
You
wouldn't?
I would never.
If you could go back now, you don't do it differently? And I know that it's a hard philosophical question because of based off the morality of it, but let's remove the morality.
Most of the people have hurt along the way. I feel I empathize with that especially. But the knowledge base and the way I am as a person, I would never take it back. Because I know if ultimately it would have gotten me. If I didn't have that journey, let's say now I entered where I am now at 25, sober, and then I discovered it then or something, it would have ruined me, man.
Yeah.
And my outlook on the world is a bit different from many people my age because of that experience. I kind of have in as much as I'm a very staunch believer in God, I also have a harsh understanding of what society is and how it exists. You know, So I like having that.
What did being in jail teach you? If I can even, if that's the word I could use,
adaptability, like how and not based off wanting to adapt. That's how quickly people adapt. Like you'd be surprised what the human brain and capabilities of. You might be thinking about like, I can never, but when you're put there and you have to survive, imagine after a few days it's home. Of course, it's like, whoa, you see so many things, crazy things happening. But it's just now where you're residing. And
does that come from, obviously you can only use your experience, but does it come from acceptance? Is it because you accepted the state? Because you see, like right now, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm trying to remember your story and how you described being in jail, with there being, being in 15 people in a cell and you're counting.
15? No,
15.
It was maybe a cell that's meant to fit 30.
Yeah.
Well, like 60.
Okay, so you're 60 people in a cell. The guy's doing, squatting so that you can do the head count and things like that. I'm finding it
hard to imagine.
So I'm finding it hard to reconcile saying that actually you're there for 48 hours and you adjust.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. You'd be surprised how quickly you adapt, because what are you gonna do? Cry? Are you gonna cry and sob and ask government to free you? When you're there, you realize just how fast you can't show any sign of that kind of ignorance. Bro, that's the hyenas will just take advantage of that. So you'd be surprised how quickly that reality dawns. And you're like, okay, I'm here. For me, I didn't know how long for, but I knew I had to survive, man. So, and that's not because I'm Eric. I feel anyone would survive.
Survive. If you're really put against the wall, you'd figure it out, huh? Interesting. As we sort of wind up, right? I just want to, I guess, because we've talked about rehab, talked about the space in rehab, we talked about, I guess you, maybe, I don't know if we touched on this enough. How, if you were to describe how your alcoholism, or what alcoholism did to the money that you had, the money that you could get, that you got a hold of, how would you describe it?
Rich broke. Rich broke. Because I had so many very golden opportunities that I ruined. That could have turned into probably some wonderful things. Pain for other people also. In fact, mainly because as an alcoholic, you don't have much earning power, man, especially when you're active. Your earning power is so limited. If anything, you'll operate maybe 10, 15%. I worked as a clerk when I had no business being a clerk. So pain for other people, the people who are funding the care, the rehab, the ups and downs. It's like you've robbed them of a lot. But I think the prize is now how they see me today. Like for them, my dad always says he can't believe it till today, and I don't blame him. Like at the time he's just like, what? This guy? He's holding down a job. He's married. He's chilled. He's mature. Like we exchange ideas almost. So man. So to answer your question, I'd say pain for other people. More so. More so than me, because me, I realized way after the fact. Hindsight.
And so every single cent you'd get, or every single cent you could get your hands on,
a good portion, a good portion was booze. So you almost start hating yourself. So you find, let's say, get 1,000 rand. You'll buy noodles and some, what are they called? Those cheap frankfurters. Milk and bread. So if you use like 200 or maybe 150 rand. The rest,
booze.
So it's like you hate yourself. You never buy yourself a shirt. You never buy yourself a good phone. And you're watching other people save, using their allowances to save for laptops, phones, PSAs, just diligently saving, And me, I could barely keep money. I was always in debt, always borrowing, always finessing. Borrow from Peter to pay Paul, like that. Yeah.
I mean, so even in these 4 years that you've been, on the mend, or is it on the wagon, off the wagon, on the wagon?
On the wagon.
These 4 years you've been on the wagon, right? Or let me say 3 years up until before last year when you started working for who you work for now. Through the difficulty, through that 1 bedroom, through the Netflix on the phone, through the Sanford chips and limited ice cream and limited ketchup, are you telling yourself, like, I deserve this, almost? Because I'm wondering, like, if you're able to achieve the licenses that you needed to achieve to be able to be the pilot that you want to become in a typical situation, and then you find yourself in that kind of space, I don't know how you get out. Like, I'm trying to think about how, if you follow the quote-unquote social true path, do everything you're supposed to do, and then end up there, and you can't find a job, so you end up having to become a teacher, earning 30K, and you can only get in 1 bedroom. I don't know how you get out.
So I always, the first part of your question, I reconciled, like, where I was. I took responsibility for the journey to where I'd reached, how it got there. I understood, in as much as it's a disease, I had no one to blame, especially because I had so many chances to get it right before. So that was a very strong pillar of me picking up the pieces. Not fretting about, oh my God, things are tough. No, that was not the mentality. I understood it. I'd even laugh, man. There are times I'd been a matatu and it's squashed and I'm just laughing at, I used to have a car, I found the humor in it, right? But now on the flip side, me, I've always been a dreamer. And because I was in that circumstance, I did not stop applying for jobs. Almost, let me give an example. Where I used to work, there was a time we had interns. Now, the interns were attached to different instructors, and you're supposed to assign them with stuff to do. My intern, a guy called Wissam, shout out to Wissam, his main role was to edit my cover letters for CVs. Because, you write... it has always been a dream of mine to work for this, then you just interchange the names. So that was his job. And then send them to me, I send them like that. So I never once said this is never going to happen. I had moments. I remember once asking, does my reputation precede me? Or because aviation is so small, man, everyone knows everyone somehow, right? But I never gave up. Some very painful moments, especially when I got close to start, like a couple of jobs, got close, because interviews, they keep sifting. So you start maybe 12, then 8, then 4. There's one I was the last 2. The last 2. You can imagine I already started fantasizing, right? So for me, that dreamer quality that I have has been a strong thing. And even right now, in as much as my life has taken some form of what society would call a shape, you have the things that society measures people with. You have a house, you have a wife, you have a car. For me, those are just the foundational things. There's so much more I have in store for my own life. There's so many dreams I'm yet to achieve. Like the flying part, I love it. It's the best thing. But I'm looking at it as a foundation to do what I really want to do, which is content. Which is, I love them in equal measure. But I can see how far the content can go. To many right now, it can sound like a story, a jabber. Like when I share my dream with people, it sounds so far-fetched. But so did me getting sober.
Yeah.
So did me picking up the pieces and where I am now. It all sounded far-fetched. So, yeah, man, that dreamer quality for me is a strong part. And I'll tell you guys, subscribe to my channel.
Yes, please do.
Every other time with Eric on YouTube, it's just a platform where I talk to interesting people I find interesting, have some nice objective conversations from all spheres.
Yeah.
I have a sub-series that I'm doing called Airmen, where I interview people from my industry.
Yeah.
From all points of view.
Yeah.
Last week I interviewed a KQ pilot that'll come out next week. This week I dropped an episode of a guy who flies cargo, but Mira. Very different sphere of flying. I just want to paint the whole aviation picture.
Yeah.
Apart from what people think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. I think that would really provide some context and some color as well. My last question, maybe one more, but if you were to achieve financial freedom, right, but it meant that you would potentially compromise your sobriety, or if you were to, and this is hypothetical, of course, or if you were to maintain a status quo and there'd be no growth, there'd be no movement, you'd stay sober, but the dreams that you're chasing or the career that you're chasing, it wouldn't move for the rest of your life. So either you achieve financial freedom, growth, potentially compromise your sobriety vis-a-vis this other path. Which one would you take, do you think?
I definitely pick the latter. And the reason I say that is for me to drink is to die. Like, would I sell my sobriety for 1 billion?
Yeah.
No, because the moment I drink, you see, with every subsequent relapse I had, I came closer and closer to death.
Yeah.
Like, literally, not figuratively.
Yeah.
Ambulance. Like,
so if we even say you're a cat with 8 lives, like you're on your 9th.
Yeah. So,
literally.
And I've seen people be here, pull the 4 years, relapse on the 5th, and die. Some of these guys were guys I was with in rehab. Some were pilots. I've seen it. I've seen how the story ends. So us guys have a thing where we play the tape to the end.
Yeah.
Right? Especially specifically when it comes to matters around alcohol or the ideation of alcohol or any substance. Play the tape to the end. So you'll drink now and then tomorrow you'll want to drink. And then before you know it, you're missing Jobo. And then you're fired. And then your marriage is on the rocks. And then your health takes a beating. And then you've burnt all your bridges. And then you feel bitter. Life has twangled you. Now you don't have any social cachet. You've done it too many times. And then you start drinking some lower tier stuff. And then you start having those seizures that you had one time before. And then this time you fall, you hit your head and you die. This story has played out so many alcoholics. Yeah, it's almost textbook. So the stagnant life but longer life, of course.
So is it the most important thing for you in your life?
I'd say, first of all, for me, God.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Then my wife and sobriety.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have kids yet, so maybe when I have kids,
maybe they'll whatever. Yeah.
But
even then, I potentially float an argument that if you compromise your sobriety from the way you've described it, all of these other things fall away.
Yeah. That's why I said to drink is to die.
So that's what I'm saying. So would you effectively then say that, sobriety, because without sobriety, you don't have anything else. With sobriety, you have everything else.
Literally. That's another way to put it. Literally.
Yeah.
Like, this version of me doesn't exist without sobriety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is the most important thing.
Yeah, well, yes. I'll say my wife, because my wife is the reason I choose to be sober also.
Yeah.
Like, those reasons. Maybe if I didn't have God and my wife, I would probably, in the past, when I didn't have God, or I didn't have a meaningful relationship, I chose to try once more. Like, let me try again and see. So for me, these things are more important. And because of that, sobriety is not a choice. Yeah.
I see how you interpret it, which is also fair. Okay. Okay, all right. Well, I cannot wait to have you here maybe in another 2 years or 3 years when you've properly built your assets and properly built your financial base, and now you'd be a captain, hopefully, and we can then now discuss what you've really done with your money at that point, rather than, I guess, achieving a comfortable life that you're happy with now. But I mean, I must say, just watching your story.
I hope that doesn't throw your fans off. Maybe they'll come here for a masterclass
on money. No, because
pilot money management.
No, I mean, you've talked about it. You've talked about the money that pilots make and the ability, and you talked a little bit about the industry and what it looks like. I don't think it takes away. I think for me, it's a thing of like, if you're saying you did the math and you were looking at tens of millions that potentially you lost, or that the disease took away from you. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're saying, as an alcoholic, you cannot, if you're an active alcoholic, you're working at X percentage of your abilities. So even your earning potential is at 10 or 15%. Those are important things. I think those are important things. For me, I definitely look at it from a different perspective. Like I said, the thing that I wish I could understand, because I hear the words you're saying, but I don't understand it, is that thirst of nothing else matters. Like I'm a very curious person. From a very curious person's perspective, I would just want to understand, like, how are you in this space where nothing else matters?
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't really.
It's difficult to convey, right? Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Like, I'll wake up and nothing else matters.
At some point, it even limits. We're laughing with a friend of mine who's also in recovery. How even your circumference of operation, like it grows smaller and smaller. Like, so you find at some point you're 1 kilometer strong, because that's literally the way the spirits and home and everything in between. If you make it there, all the cinema that's between there and there, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's and like I said, I think we said this off camera. Like, from me, who's, I feel like I was telling you, I feel a little jealous of people who are able to put down their inhibitions and just live for whatever that life is, but just live. Because I feel like I have so many inhibitions.
Are you holding back anything like you'd love to do that you can't do?
It's not a can't. It's not can't, because I can. It's like you wake up in the morning, like you choose to do something. So like, if I wanted to wake up and I don't know, party, like, I can. But so, for example, I went out with my wife last week on Friday.
Yeah.
I was telling you, we haven't been out in, like, on at a club, and I cannot tell you how long. And we went out, and it was fun, and we had a good time, and we danced, and it was great. And then in the morning, she was just like,
how's the hangover?
Like, no, it wasn't even like a hangover, because I had like two beers. She had like 2 ciders and a shot. So it was.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
Hope we don't run out.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine also in recovery. He's a pilot as well. Yeah. He's flown for all the who's who. Right now he has one of the best gigs. But if I say it, people will zero down.
Yeah.
He recently took a peek behind the car. He had a bit of a relapse.
Yeah.
And he just reassured me, like, yo, bro, stay on that side.
Yeah.
Because he told me also, amidst the casual drinkers and social drinkers, there's a lot of misery. There's a lot of misery also, just masquerading as keeping up with the Joneses, right? So for me, that was a very nice reaffirmation also, that there's nothing to lose from sobriety, man.
Yeah.
Literally. Sometimes you might think like, wow, look at those guys having fun. But are they? If you break it down, are they?
They always look like they are. Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah. But if you break it down,
like the loudest table or the...
But it's because they're drunk. Like, it's because they're inebriated. Like, it's very shallow. Without being judgmental, it's a very shallow kind of fun. Let me put it that way.
I had a discussion with my wife about this one. A debate, actually. And we were debating about like what true life is, like what's the essence of true life vis-a-vis the partying scene. And I was telling her, I think my perspective was, I don't know that people achieve true life in those forms, and are able to like really be happy and achieve like real happiness and those things in those forms.
In the parting side.
Yeah.
Then you're ahead. You're ahead. Like you're confirming your bolt looking back to see. Do you think that guy back there is enjoying more than the guy at the no.
Yeah.
Because it's just that there's so much societal inertia on that side.
Yeah.
And that's what's marketed. So sometimes you're like, wait a minute. You'll have some FOMO, but bro, what you're doing outside that is so much deeper and fundamentally what life is about.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things addicts learn is life is fundamentally mundane. So you wake up, you go to work, you have some form of routine. Within that routine, you do it consistently, experience growth. That there is life. Life is not this thing that people think. That's the real... that's how people end up Warren Buffett. Just consistently, man. Some of the most successful people will tell you the biggest decision they made, and they're not alcoholics or addicts, was to quit booze. Because they just saw, wait a minute, no. This is the PR superficial version. Let me go the real path.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting philosophy there. Anyway, thanks for coming. Like I said, I cannot wait to have you back here in like 2 or 3 years, and
My pleasure.
We see what will have happened there. Hopefully that time you'll be in that 1.5 to 2 million bracket. Then we can see what to do.
Yeah. And I can't wait to have you on as well on my side. Come on my platform and we get to know you a bit.
Get to know me a bit more. Yeah, definitely.
I think you're doing a great job here, man. Fantastic content.
Yeah.
I love looking at all Kenyan content, especially the one that rises above the cliche stuff.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, man.
Yeah, thanks you. Much appreciated. All right, guys, we will see you guys on the next episode of Financially Incorrect. Please remember to like and subscribe and share this with a friend.